Hey, every to the body. What is going on? Welcome to another Smoke and Mirrors. May the gods and heavens be with us. Hopefully, this episode is brought to you by technology. Technology, the thing that means that maybe an interview is going to happen and you're going to see it and hear it. And I'm not going to have a mental breakdown in front of you on live Facebooks. Also, brought to you by pens. Pens, they give me a thing to distract myself with and hold in my hands when we're doing this. Pens. And now, uh, here's a song. Please don't adopt all the babies. Some belong to us. And if you get out of our neighborhoods, that would be really great. Okay, I don't know if that was appropriate. Now here they are, your host, Carlos Kareem Winda. Oh my goodness, my Lord in heaven. I really do hope that this works. I might snap. I might snap. I had therapy today, which is good. And I've been examining what it means that I would be so thoroughly upset with myself in the world that technology didn't work for the last interview. Uh, that's fun. I'm sure it's 4:20 by now. I'm late, of course, but you know what? The white man's time doesn't really mean shit, does it? There you go. Smoke 'em if you got 'em, kids. You may be aware that there has been less smoking them as I got them. Mostly because I've been captivated by these very, very, very interesting conversations that I've been lucky enough to have. And today is not going to be any exception to that. There are going to be many more conversations happening this week. Let's talk about it. Coming up on July the 1st, which is tomorrow. So, for anybody who's counting, for those of us who have actually been social distancing, we have now been in solitary for 173 months, and people who have not been wearing masks are starting tomorrow, July 1st, when I will be here with Esperanza Turvalon Garrett. We're going to talk about the census and why you need to do it, why it is not a conspiracy to take everything from black people. We got to get it on. Please do tune in for that. And then on Thursday, please be here for the Dom Jones Redux interview. This is the one where we don't make a giant asshole out of ourselves because we actually have the technology worked out. It's going to be a good one. We're going to talk about music, whether or not men have the emotional range to say anything of any substance in this time. And we may look at what that means in terms of J. Cole and Dave Chappelle. Hey, that's all going to be. That sounds fun. That sounds like a way that I could win the popularity contest amongst other men. Be the most popular man with all the other men. Just talk shit about J. Cole and Dave Chappelle. That's that's what I do. That's what I do. Today though, not going to talk about. Well, I don't know. We might talk shit about both of them. I don't know. But the point of anything that we're going to be doing is not to be talking shit. Hopefully, what we'll be doing is to explore some ideas. Uh, as you may know, if you were here, I don't know, I'm going to say about a week and a half ago, I was talking about a thing that I would like as a statement in Black Lives Matter and a statement of affirmation of Black life, which would be a reclamation, repositioning, and perhaps eventual abolition of adoption as it stands in the United States. Um, Friend of mine who is an adoptee saw that and it might have hit them a little bit in the heart. And when I clarified, what I clarified with is yes, I do mean stop buying our children. You don't seem very responsible with them all the time, such as pulling a Thelma and Louise. This means I have questions about the motivations. That's all. Not that there aren't exceptions, not that it's not born of love, not that you can't make a Kaepernick through it. You can. I'm just saying you got to be very, very mindful if that's going to happen. So as I was saying this, I was realizing, hey, you know, I sometimes like guest talk about shit like this. It's not what I do, and it's not what I've done. And so, kind of, it's not my place, even though I do have a pretty strong opinion about everything. And this is no exception. But I do know somebody who does this work very, very well. Somebody who's been doing the work of both transracial adoption, intercultural adoption, and adoption within Black families and Black culture, and doing it all through a bunch of different places that I'm going to introduce her and let her talk for herself because I don't need to. With that, please welcome to the show, hopefully, dear God, let this work, my dear friend, Malaika Parker. Malaika, are you there? I see you. I
Hello.
see you. Oh, look at that. Look at that. Look at
Yay.
that. There she is. There she is. They love you. They love
Yeah,
you. How you doing? I'm
I
gonna I'm
am
gonna give
well.
myself a little bit of the Rona. Hold on. Got to get it in there.
Rub all in the eye. Just rub it in.
You know what I mean? You got to get it all the way in the
Just
pink
all
stuff in
in.
the corner. Just rub it in there like a bowling ball. How are you?
I'm well. Thank you. Thank you for having me on.
Oh, thank you for being here. Whatever. Hey, how are you doing? How's the family? How's everything going with being captive right now with the Rona as much as you are, or recaptivated if you've been out?
Yeah, no, we've been home. Me and my four beautiful children have been home for 1,000 months now, it feels like.
Hmm.
And we're doing all right. Like, we have space. We're fortunate.
Your voice gave a Mary Tyler Moore
Yeah.
right there, just so
No,
you know.
I'm deeper we get into this, the more I'm like, we're fine, we're good, everybody's good, we're just fine.
Yeah.
My kids are at the stage of this where they're running around with no shirts on, they're like all doing their own hair, like it's a whole, scene from Black Lord of the Flies. Um, but we're just rolling with the punches.
Uh, I've but one, and as you know, and she is all of my
Yeah,
human interaction at this point and is
yeah,
on vacay. Uh, but one of the things that she has adopted for herself is to decide that she's going to wear sweatpants every day
yeah.
in all the heat. It smells good.
It
It's
smells so
nice. It's nice. Adolescent children smell nice.
so great. And then being locked in a house with them for 4 months is even better.
Oh, holy shit. Gets in the walls, gets in the
Yeah,
carpet. Mm.
it's so good.
Smell it when they're outside, when they're inside. It's wonderful. But you're holding up okay, aside
Yeah.
from what we're doing?
Yeah, we're doing pretty well. I mean, I think, capitalism sucks, and so my
Mm,
partner has to go to work because he's an essential worker, um,
fuck.
and that's fucked up, and it's also our reality, and we're put in a position of feeling like super thankful that we have our jobs, super thankful that we're very steady and healthy, and just also really pissed off that any of us have to choose between our health and being able to provide for our families.
Right. I mean, that's entirely fucked. So,
Yeah,
yeah, I'm sorry.
not to be a downer.
I'm sorry. So, does he get to spend time with you with the kids, or is it isolation within the house right now, or what is it looking like for you then?
No, so we've kind of isolated ourselves as a family, so we fully interact, and
Okay.
then we haven't. We're kind of like you, like we're not really hanging out with other people.
Yeah.
Um, which good thing we like each other because we've tested all the boundaries of all of the
Yeah.
relationships in there.
Right.
Yeah, but yeah, we're finding new ways to entertain ourselves. It's fun, actually.
Yeah. What have you found? What have you found so far? What's a new at-home entertainment method you found?
I randomly break out into dance parties,
Okay.
just earlier by myself because my children will not join me. Um, just earlier, I was dancing to "It Takes Two" by Rob Bass,
Yes.
which I still know all of
Yes.
the words to. Like every my 4-year-old was like, "What the hell is happening right now?"
It takes
Um,
two.
it's so
It takes
good.
two to make a thing go right. Come on now. Come on. So good.
And then the kids are making, so we do a lot of farming, and they're making a podcast around like farming and
Dope.
yeah, it's pretty cool. And so they're like editing all of the music for it and
Uh-huh.
learning about Black folks and farming, which is really cool.
Oh, that's dope.
And
Is
then
that a public podcast?
so, we've been in the development stage for 4 months.
Okay.
So it will be once I can like pry it out of their hands because like every
All
day
right.
there are new edits and new additions. But it will be, and I will share it.
Okay. Good. 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 When you do, I'm going to make sure and share it with our folks. I think they're going to like that.
Yay. Yeah, they're pretty cute
Yay.
kids.
They're beyond cute kids. Are you kidding me?
They're
They're
incredible.
adorable. They're adorable and incredible.
I
Um,
I do have to say that one thing that I really am thankful for is I have a 14-year-old, and so getting this much time with a child who's
yeah.
almost an adult feels like I'm like all the time I can get with that one is and so that's been a really sweet time to just spend a lot of quality time.
Mm. That is it. I love having watched that one only because I got to know them from when they were an infant,
Yeah.
and so watching the growth into young adulthood, getting to spend time in the summers in the last several summers, um, we're so young. We're so young.
Oh, John.
We're so young.
I don't have an
So
almost adult
young.
child. No, not at all.
No, that's not true. That's not possibly true. All right. So I see you're almost adult child in the summers. Can you
Yeah.
speak to why that is true and how long you have been making that true? I've only gotten to do it for 2 years,
Yeah.
so maybe you could talk to it a little bit.
So I work for an organization that's called Pact, and we are now an adoption organization and an agency. And so the summer that you spend time with us is our
Hmm.
summer camp. So we have 2 summer camps a year that are for adoptive families. Um, and there is programming for children and programming for parents. A lot of it is focused on the interconnection of race and adoption, and focuses less on the side of we're all so lucky to have built our families this way, and more on the side of really understanding the impact of loss, the context that adoption resides in, and then what folks need to be doing to support all of who our children are. And I come to this work as an adoptive parent. So we are a family of 6. We're parenting 4 children, 2 of whom joined our family through adoption and 2 through birth. And, I really wanted to build a community for myself, right? I wanted my space in the world of adoption is to support people of color who who are thinking about adoption or who have adopted. And I just really wanted to be able to hang out with people of color and be able to talk about adoption in the same moment, right? Like
Right.
when I became a parent, I had like my dope ass, like people of color friends who had like all the politics. And then I really wasn't seeing any people of color. And it started to feel like, oh, we're like, are we the only, we can't be the only ones. Like, I know lots of people of color, like in our families, and, there are folks who adopt for sure. But
Yeah.
they weren't in the spaces. And so I talked to the folks who helped us build our family about kind of doing some work to really support families of color. And so The project that I am working on is now, I think it's 12 years old.
Mm,
And it's called the Adoptive Parents of Color Collaborative. And um, basically, it's just trying to get the voice out there around, like, there are folks of color who adopt, that there's work and support that we need and conversations we need to have. And that it's actually really racist to not acknowledge our existence, right? Because it plays into this narrative that white folks come in and save our children. And we don't want to have any part of that, right? So we're kind of using this as an opportunity to kind of smash on that myth.
yeah. Yeah, no, it's been for me. It's been incredible, right? So the first year you brought me up there or invited me out there was specifically speaking to families of color, adoptive families of color, talking about uh, my understanding of how the dynamics of race, class, and gender intersect with because they intersect with all aspects of our lives, right? Because they intersect with the idea of who is a caretaker, who is an appropriate caretaker, who's an appropriate guide. They obviously intersect with the ideas and impacts around adoption as well, and with the history of adoption and the history of foster housing in particular, the propensity for white adoptive families to historically be wealthier families who were as prone to uh, adopt, if we want to use that word,
Mm-hmm.
uh, children from poor families, poor white families, Appalachian families in particular, uh, for a paltry sum uh, under the auspices that these infants had died after being separated from their mothers in the hospital, right? And that this is very much the history of even the most benevolent version of adoption. Forget the foster housing
Right.
of Native families. Forget the adoption of the offspring of your enslaved Africans.
Right.
There was any number of ways that this came to be. And I know that my experience with adoption personally was very, very different, right? I had wanted to be a parent for a very long time. My co-parent and I had tried for a very long time. It looked like that may be a route, and turned out not to be our path. It is something that I explored deeply, though, with you, as you know. And can you talk to me more about what has been revelatory for you around what is distinct around the process of adoption and around the process of adoption for Black families, at least in your experience and your experience with Pact, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because when we look at the history of adoption, like you were speaking to, there's this, it's just based in all of this classism. It's based in all of this racism. It's based in all of these ideas about not supporting families, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
so the thing that I am kind of fixated on in this moment, like my current frustration with the way that society operates is how much. So, as a Black woman who is also an adoptive parent,
Mm-hmm.
I have had so much space to think about parenting, right? Like, I go to classes, I've had workshops, there's intentional community built around me.
Mm,
Like, folks assume really great things about me when they know many people don't assume that I'm an adoptive parent. But if they know that I am, then there's lots of assumptions about how wonderful and great I am, um, and how amazing of a parent I must be. And
right.
I wonder what would be different if all Black moms were given that, right? Like,
Mm,
what would it be like
mm,
if we actually we were in a society that supported people in understanding that they can parent. Not
Come on now.
every single person can or wants to parent, right? Like that's true also. And we need to have supports for folks who aren't in a position to parent.
Right.
But in this moment in time, in the way that, and I think what you were speaking to in your last, the episode before, we can't like, it's very muddy, right? Like we can't, it's very hard to figure out, to pull apart, like, when is it that somebody is actually fully and completely choosing when it comes to the process of private agency assisted adoption, right? Where someone is making the plan, right? Versus someone comes into their home and takes their child. When someone's making the plan, how do we know that they're actually making a choice that they would also make if they had all of the things available to them, right? And how do we know that it's just that they are not interested in parenting or can't in the moment, right? And I think that mostly it's that people aren't given the opportunity, right? And it's curious to me that we remove babies, right? Or we push people to placing their babies, and then the people, because they don't have resources. One of the primary reasons for placement in all areas of adoption and foster care is resources, is access to money and resources, right? But then we pour in all of these resources to train and support people in how to parent those same children, right? And so that, like, one of my kind of like just moments is we need to be supporting families so that they fully know that if that's what they want to do, then they have a whole society behind them that's supporting parenting, right?
Yeah.
Because it's hard, right? Like, even with all of the supports that I have, I like often doubt myself, right? Like, not clear if this is going to turn out well for anyone involved. And I also have like a significant cheering section, right? Like I have lots of folks rooting for me, and I'm clear about that. I have people that I can call on when I need support, when I feel like I don't know what the right choice is, and I don't get judgment. I am a Black woman, so I do have worries about like, being system involved, even if that's not ever been my experience. That is a thing, right? But for the most part, I don't live in deep fear of that, right? Because there's been so much resources that have been pumped into me, into my family. So I'm not sure if I got to what you were asking me for, but that's kind of the thing that's really, really big for me right now.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I get, that sounds to me like you're getting to the root of it, right? So that we're not just looking at a matter of um, the purposes that you were beginning. Well, I don't know about beginning, but you were certainly in the thrust of when you brought me out, right?
Yeah.
Looking at what is it to have a whole family, right? Not looking only at the adoptive parents, looking at first family as well, looking at birth family as well. Where is everybody in the picture of what it takes to raise this child,
Right.
so that they understand that they're not somebody who was given up on, right?
Right.
So that they understand that they're somebody whose parents care deeply about them,
That's right.
who more often than not did not, as you said, have the opportunity to be as engaged as they otherwise might because of capitalism, specifically because of the penal system, because of the prison system, specifically because of what happens in our outcomes being so deeply attached to our area code at birth, right?
Yeah.
Our zip code at birth, rather, and what the implications of that are in terms of whether or not there has ever been given the opportunity, as you said, to parent. So, what does giving the opportunity to parent look like? I mean, if you're going down the road, if you're going forward, what do you imagine we are providing,
Yeah.
and what is the shape of that?
Yeah.
You know?
Well, so one of the things that is not the work that I do, but I find to be really amazing in my organization, because we're a nonprofit and an agency, so we
Mm-hmm.
support families who are thinking about placement, and we also work with potential adoptive families also. And then the organization part of our work is where the education and support comes in. So on the placement side of the work, the folks who do that work are really, really committed to exactly what you talked about, right? So if they are talking to a expectant parent who's thinking about placement, they talk to them about all of the options, right? They talk to them about like, so why are you thinking about placing? And like, have you talked to family members? Is it an employment thing? Might you get a job in a month and then everything's okay? Or is this like 10 years and you might not have it? You know what I mean? Like, is this something that we can support you in fixing? Or is it, and that like there's an urgency because there's a baby, but maybe it actually isn't as urgent as it might feel. Making you feel like you aren't going to be a good parent. Where are those messages coming from? And they do a lot of solid work around that. And they're also doing a lot of work in educating folks that expectant families come in contact with. So in hospitals, in other adoption agencies, in other social work fields, to make sure that they understand that adoption is a trauma, right? That when someone is placed into another family, however that happens, whatever the circumstance, there is a loss, right?
Right.
And that there is a toll that person pays, right, as a result of that trauma. And that has been the narrative around adoption at all, right? Like Different Strokes and, Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, like all of the stories that we think about with adoption are all like, oh, well, great, wonderful. Like your life is so much better now, right? And then, and then on the other side of it, when it's same race adoptions, when it's Black families adopting Black families, or Latinx families adopting Latinx babies, then there's even more of that, right? Because then it's like, oh, well, same, right? Like, well, no, there's still a loss. So I think that starts to address the stuff that comes up once a family has gotten to the place of thinking about placement. But I think if we were to like walk it backwards more and think more about what are all of the support structures that are needed, I think getting folks support for mental health care, for if they have a mental health crisis, getting folks support if they're experiencing addiction, making sure people have food, making sure people have housing, making sure that that schools are in a place that look at families as if they are, that demonize families, that are really a place where families can go, and if they're struggling, look for help. I know one of the things that happens in our society is that there are just so many things that are stacked against us, right? Especially as Black folks, that asking for help can feel like making a choice between getting help possibly and like losing your children, right? Or like losing your freedoms, or it can be a non-choice for lots of folks. And so I think removing that, but I mean, really, I think ultimately it's like walking even further back.
Go on with it.
Right? Because I think the thing, like, so most folks don't know that I'm an adoptive parent, right? Like if you see me on the street with my children, people just assume that we're all different shades of Black, and and because mostly
Like
people don't assume. Right.
Yeah.
And
That's fine. That makes sense. Sure.
we're just all different
Yeah. This
shades.
is all the same. It's all the same.
Um and I think the way that folks show up around Black moms in particular is really quite crazy, and I have this experience of seeing both sides of it, right? Because mostly people don't know, if they don't know me very well. And so I get the like, oh, she has 4 kids. I get the stares. I get the white folks feeling like they need to step in and fix my parenting. I get all of the things, right? And then when someone finds out that I'm an adoptive parent, they suddenly it changes. And then if they find out
Then
that
you're
like,
lionized. Yeah.
right. And so I think I think finding ways to really infuse more centeredness around, like, not just trusting Black women, but like trusting Black moms, right? And understanding that we actually really love our babies, and understanding that mostly folks want to show up for their babies the best way that they can. And then I feel like if we started from that place, right,
Yeah.
then all of our structures would look different, right? If you look at like parent education in schools or in our communities, they're often centered on this deficit model, right? Like they're centered on, well, you don't know how to cook for your baby, so let us bring you some food. Let us introduce you to vegetables, right? Or you don't know how to discipline your children. Let us teach you how to discipline your children. You don't ever show up at school for your children, so we're just going to assume that you're never going to show up, right? Like there's the entire approach as is really centered around not trusting Black women, not trusting Black moms, not trusting Black families, separating families, right? Like the prison industrial complex, like all of the things, right? I think I really look at it as a symptom of white supremacy and this capitalist structure that we're all living under, right? And that it plays out in this really finite, crazy way in how we treat and respond to Black motherhood in particular.
Well, it's extremely finite, right? Because it's not just as simple as everything that you said and snaps to every single word of that, right? And the only thing that I would even add to that, if I would deign to add anything at all, is that you were talking about the centering of Black motherhood and Black mothering as though it's not a thing they do, right? And I would only offer that that is a notion that is not true. It is a thing that they don't honor within our culture and within our families,
Yeah,
because Black mothering is sacred to them if it is for their development. They
100%.
often talk about the Black
Yeah,
mother who helped raise their family. They often talk about the Black mother who they're just like part of our family. They often talk about and may not talk about what it is to be uh, uh, having Black nanny after Black nanny after Black nanny on a
yeah,
history built on the breast milk of Black women who were
yeah,
the nursemaids to these white women, such that they wouldn't mess up their tatty shape for their men's. And so we tie this all back to the patriarchy again, and in particular the
yeah,
white patriarchy, which is then replicated by Black male presenting people in an effort to try to achieve some sort of parity,
yeah,
right? Parity with the T within this system that is completely built on the oppression of and exploitation of the Black sacred feminine. And so I don't think it's just as simple as that they don't regard it. They disregard it when it is done by us, for us, on our own community's behalf. That's when these motherfuckers start getting very disregardful. Is that a word? Uh,
now.
I'm working with it. Very disregardful of the way that we raise our children, right? Because if we're raising their children that way, they think it's great. To your point earlier, in terms of the 1980s tropes that they fed us, look at Nell Carter and Give Me a Break. It's the same
Yeah,
shit. It is literally, it's fine as long as you're our mammy. Just don't be the mother to your children. Do you know what I
right,
mean?
right.
It's insane.
Yeah.
Gross ass. So,
Just
but
take
that's why
pause.
you focus, huh? Like, yeah, you know what? I am going to take a little pause. Hold on. I'm not going to lie, girl. You know what? I've had a cauldron of rage that I've just been carrying around in two hands like it's kung fu, just burning both of my hands in my chest for like the past like somewhere around the past 2 3 weeks. It finally just snapped. It finally, I was the whole time, oh, this is fine, okay, it's new adjustment, there's old world, there's new world, there's now, there's then, I'm just fine, I'm here and now. And
Right.
somewhere somewhere in the last 2 weeks in the fire hose of bullshit that this administration has been pouring over everybody, I just lost it. I just
Yeah.
lost it. I'm like out of breaths. I had been out of fucks for quite some time. Uh, do you know what I'm saying? Like the fucks, there are no fucks banks even. We're gonna have to find a new economy. I don't know what the fuck we're gonna do, but it's a whole thing. We're gonna have to renationalize our fucks distribution center. But in terms of being able to hold the exhaustion of these people and their limited range,
Yeah.
dear Lord, how do you do it? Because, and I ask this again, okay, I've regrouped, regarding your job, considering I have seen some of the parents that you end up around. Now, in everything that you just said, it suggests that there is a parent of a particular level of privilege who
Hmm.
many times is going to be engaged. Add to that the social script that suggests that black bodies necessarily belong to white women.
Yeah.
That, how do you,
Hmm.
how do you?
Yeah. I mean, I
I don't.
I would not be able to do this work with any other organization. Truly and honestly, right? Like I work for an organization where we work really hard to center the conversation in how white supremacy is playing out, right, in the
Hmm.
world of adoption and in all of our lives, right? So,
Hmm.
um, I mean, one thing is that most of my work is actually with people of color, right? So I'm building community with folks of color.
Fact on
I
fact,
so
fact on
I
fact.
kind of have like a little bit of a nest of an experience within the world of adoption. And sometimes I do trainings and discussions with folks. Um, yeah, I mean, it is it is interesting. It is unlike anything else because I really one of the first things that I went to where I really saw just how many children are being parented by folks of a different race, right?
Hmm.
By
Hmm.
white folks. How many black children are being parented by white folks. And just to see it firsthand, I think that like it can be really, really hard. And there are some folks that are working really hard to understand what that means and I think I've been able to come in contact with folks that I never would otherwise who are like,
Yeah.
no, I'm about this work, right? And there are just some folks where you're like, come on, really? Um, like a very early on conversation I went to before doing the work, I went to a workshop um, and I was like paired off with a white mom and she proceeded to tell me I don't think I was parenting yet. I think I was like I was still waiting to be an adoptive parent.
Hmm. Hmm.
The child was really really young still, but she told me repeatedly that black folks don't adopt their children. This was a white woman who had adopted black babies, and then went on to tell me, um, well, where are they? Like people have critiques of my parenting and how I show up for my children. Where are they? And I think for me, part of why the work that I get to do is important with on the people of color side of adoption
Yeah.
is we smash that bullshit, right? Like we
Right.
actually
Right.
show up, right? We show up for our babies in all of the ways. And
Deeply.
like all the ways, right? And we and this idea that we don't, this idea that we don't care, this idea that we're just not present, one stops people from feeling like they can be present, but then
Yeah.
also just it also stops families who might be considering placement from thinking that it's possible to place their child with a baby with to place their child with a family that might have a similar experience, right? And so not that, I think that the best possible case for a child most of the time is to be parented by the family they were born to, right? Because
Mm,
I just
mm,
do. And I think that when folks need to make a placement for whatever reason, or a placement needs to happen, that families really deserve to have access to folks that look like them, right? And we
mm.
know across the board that that's actually really important to families who are considering placing their children. Um, and yeah, so there's that piece that, like, part of my work really smashes on stupidity in the world around whether or not Black folks adopt babies, right? And really,
Mm-hmm.
it's not even
Mm-hmm.
about adoption, it's about whether or not we care about our children, right? And this is
Right.
one of the spaces that it shows up, but it shows up everywhere.
Yeah.
Um, and then, I also I am really, really fascinated by how systems of oppression play out in our society, and in our lives, and in our understanding of how the world functions. And, so there's also, like, it's interesting to have experiences of witnessing people have to deal with their own shit, right? And in a way where, like, you can't have the same narrative. You can't have
Yeah.
all of these stories about who Black folks, who folks of color are in your head and be parenting children of color. People do it. And there's a space in which you can really be like, okay, so really you got to cut that bullshit, right? Like, really
Yeah.
you have to be in a different place because you impact somebody else's life. Um, and so I think for me, it's working in an organization where I know that I can show up 100% the way that I am, and say the things that I need to say, and then knowing that there are other folks in the organization who actually will handle the white folks, right? Like, that's not actually
Yeah.
my job.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
there's an analysis around, like, why that's not my job, right? And I can step into those spaces when I want to, and I am encouraged to not step in those spaces when I don't want to.
Yeah.
And I think that can make it feel different.
Yeah, no, it definitely does. I mean, the first time you brought me out there, I remember flying out there and thinking to myself, I don't know why this is a bad idea. This is this is not a good idea. You should, I don't, I, this is the things I have to say about this are not, this is not a good idea,
Yeah.
you know. And as you said, you have created a space and an environment where bringing a baseline truth about any system of child rearing that is going to be exalted in a white supremacist capitalist patriarchy, what the shape of that is going to be looks how that's going to look if it's going to be built upon a false binary around black and white,
Right.
a false binary around male and female,
Right.
and built on these honestly, the ideas that could only be held in the brain the size of a dinosaur about how the world and relationship and child rearing works.
Yeah.
And you are a shining star, and you have come to Earth. I'm glad I get to be here with you, and you are certainly one of the meteors that, as you say, has come to smash. And so I am ever grateful for that, and ever grateful for the opportunity to continue to collaborate with you. So thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank
Yeah,
you.
and thank you for the chat and all the work that you do. I really, really appreciate it. I really,
Appreciate
really appreciate it.
Thank you.
So, all right. I'm gonna give you one of these. You stay there. Don't leave yet. Don't leave yet. Hey, that's my friend Malaika. Told you all my friends are geniuses, motherfuckers. Um, hey, so uh, I, 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 I am working through my cauldron of rage. Going to be okay. Certainly, moments like this where we get to have the experience that I hope we're going to get to have help my soul. But more important, recognizing that that for me, as for all of us, I think right now is coming from one of the things that Malika was addressing, which is this idea of mourning and whether or not we mourn properly, even the rebirths that we have, because ultimately, for a phoenix to be born, it has to first burn. This is ending much deeper than I like to. I don't know. That sounded prolific and shit. All right. Anyway, hey, this has been Smoke and Mirrors. Do me a favor, would you please? Would you, if you have a doubloon to spare, if you are so lucky that your issue right now is that you feel like you're eating just a bit too much, would you please maybe consider throwing a buck or two over to the good folks at the Okra Project? Okra Project at paypal.me/the OKA, whoops, OKRA. Everyone makes mistakes. Listen, fuck up. I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to go back. We're going to do that again. I'm going to edit this out. It's going to be fine. Okra Project, paypal.me/the Okra Project, THEOKRAPROJECT I do words. You can find out more about what these people do at anywhere at Okra Project. This is about making sure that there is food service for trans and queer folk in need. This in particular is happening on the East Coast. I have family out there too, and so that's what this is about because we are all family, one diaspora. Hey, do you like what this is evolving into? Or devolving into, I guess, if the technology breaks and I snap. If you do, you can patronize it by becoming a patron. That would be dope. And you can do that at patreon.com/ smoke and mirrors CCB. The C, the C, and the B are for comedy, for culture, for bullshit. That runner with names right there. Your name could be on it. Hey, if you don't have a dime to spare right now, that's okay. Guess what? You can still support by sharing this very episode or any other episode. If you like the interview episodes, there are many of they at this point, and there are going to be many more to come. Did you like this? Share it. Share it with your racist grandpa. Really piss him off. That's a good a Fourth of July gift, huh? Red, white, and burn it the fuck down. You could share the episode with Walidi. You could share the episode with Ryan. You could share the episode with Forrest. People can't speak for themselves. Think about sharing an episode, would you? If you do have a shekel and you would like to throw it this way, God bless you for transracial wealth distribution. And if you have a doubloon, I'll take that too. You can do that at Venmo at Carlos-Wyndham, Windham. That is like the jazz label. That is not like the hotel. That's Wyndham with a Y. Those fuckers took different slaves. We don't like their plantation. My master was the good master. Cash App at $CK Wyndham, spelled the same way. PayPal /me.CK Wyndham. Do you have anything you'd like to say to us? Do it. Smoke and Mirrors, CCB at Gmail. If you want to see my big stupid face and don't want to hear any of these words, that's fine. You can find me at IG at El Caballo Negrito. If you want to see the words, you don't want to hear the voice, I get that too. Go to Twitter at Caballo Negrito. And that's all I got to say about it. So do me a favor. Take care of yourself. Take care of each other. Stay the fuck inside, you dumbasses. If you'd have stayed inside, we could be going outside. You fucked it all up. Stay inside. We're starting over again. Okay, you know what? Do over. Do over, do over, do over. All that last 3.5 months, that didn't even count. No harm, no foul. Fine. No problem. Stay your ass inside. Keep your mask on. Wash your fucking hands. Take care of yourselves. Take care of each other. We love you. I'll see you tomorrow. We're going to talk to Esperanza here. We're going to be talking about the census. Ooh, that's going to be fun too. Okay. All right. Bye.